Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Fizan Ali Software Wala and I'm a one student at Rehan School Islamabad campus. So we was today I am here with the new Maya. So our today's Maya topic is appliances everyday appliances. How do everyday appliances like microwaves work? So let's make and Maya on this topic. So let's start first of all call the Maya for some questions. Hey Maya,
Hi.
can you hear me? Okay, so what is microwave oven and why is it called a microwave? So how do electromagnetic waves heat food in a microwave? So please give me a very long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your answers. Let's start.
All right. You want the whole deal on microwave ovens, huh? Up, it's a bit of a journey. So, a microwave oven, officially a microwave oven, is basically a self-contained box that cooks or heats food using, you guessed it, microwaves. But what are microwaves? They're a type of electromagnetic radiation, which is just a fancy way of saying waves of energy that travel through space. Think of light, radio waves, and X-rays. They're all part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Microwaves fall between radio waves and infrared light in terms of frequency and wavelength. Now, why is it called a microwave? Simple. It uses those microwaves to do the cooking. The name is pretty literal, actually. It was initially called a radio wave oven, but that didn't exactly roll off the tongue, did it? But how do these waves actually heat food? This is where it gets interesting. It's not like a conventional oven that heats food from the outside in. Microwaves work from the inside out. Here's the breakdown. Inside the microwave oven, there's a component called a magnetron. The magnetron's job is to generate those microwaves. It takes electricity and turns it into high-frequency radio waves. These waves are then guided into the cooking chamber. Food contains water molecules, and water molecules are polar. That means they have a slightly positive charge on one side and a slightly negative charge on the other. When microwaves enter the food, they cause these water molecules to vibrate rapidly, like millions of times per second. Think of it like shaking a bunch of tiny magnets back and forth really, really fast. This constant motion creates friction, and friction generates heat. That heat then spreads throughout the food, cooking it. Because microwaves directly excite water molecules, foods with higher water content heat up faster. That's why a potato takes a lot longer than a cup of soup. And that's also why you'll sometimes get uneven heating. Some areas have more water than others. There's also a rotating turntable in most microwaves, and that's not just for show. It's there to help distribute the microwaves more evenly and reduce hot and cold spots. The metal interior of the oven is designed to reflect the microwaves, bouncing them around to help ensure they reach all parts of the food. The mesh on the door isn't just there to let you see inside. It's a Faraday cage, meaning the mesh blocks the microwaves from escaping and potentially harming you. The holes are much smaller than the wavelength of the microwaves, so they can't pass through. Interestingly enough, the discovery of microwave cooking was accidental. Percy Spencer, an American engineer, was working with a magnetron during World War II when he noticed a chocolate bar in his pocket had melted. He then experimented with popcorn and eggs and realized the microwaves were the source of the heat. In 1947, the first commercial microwave oven was released, though they were huge and expensive. It took decades for them to become the kitchen staple they are today. That was a long one. Does that cover everything you wanted to know? Or is there a particular part you'd like
Okay,
me to
so
dive deeper
my
into?
next question from you is why does food heat faster in a microwave than one stove? So why does a microwave not heat the plate as much as the food? So please give me a very interesting answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long answer and very interesting. So let's start.
Gotcha. All right. Let's unpack why microwaves are so much faster than stovetops and why your plate usually stays relatively cool. It really comes down to how each method transfers heat. It's a totally different ballgame. With a stovetop, whether it's electric, gas, or induction, you're dealing with conductive heating. That means the heat is transferred from the burner to the pot or pan, and then to the food through direct contact. It's a slower process because it relies on molecules bumping into each other, passing the energy along. Think of a line of people passing buckets of water. It takes time to get to the end of the line. Plus, a lot of heat gets lost to the pan itself and the surrounding air. The pan has to heat up first, and that takes energy. Microwaves, on the other hand, bypass all that intermediary stuff. Remember those water molecules I was talking about? Microwaves target them directly. They don't need to heat up the pan, the air, or anything else. They're going straight for the source of the heat within the food. It's like giving everyone in that bucket brigade their own bucket. Much faster, right? That's why a microwave can bring something to temperature much quicker. Now, about the plate staying cooler, this is because of something called dielectric heating and what materials absorb microwaves. Glass, ceramic, and many plastics don't absorb microwaves very well. They're largely transparent to the microwave energy. They do get warm, but mostly through conduction from the hot food touching them. A small amount is absorbed directly, but it's minimal compared to the water, fats, and sugars in the food itself. Think of it like shining a flashlight through a glass window. The light goes right through, barely warming the glass. But if you shine it on a dark colored object, it absorbs the light and gets warm. Microwaves behave similarly. There's also the fact that microwave ovens are designed to minimize energy absorption by non-food materials. The interior walls are reflective to bounce the waves around, and the door has that mesh screen to prevent leakage. This directs the microwave energy towards the food. Another point, the amount of heat absorbed depends on a material's dielectric constant. Water has a high dielectric constant, meaning it absorbs microwaves very efficiently. Most plates have a much lower constant, meaning they don't absorb nearly as much energy. Finally, keep in mind that some plates will get warmer than others depending on their composition. Plates with metallic trim or design should never be used in a microwave, as metal reflects microwaves and can cause arcing and sparks. Dangerous! So, to recap, microwaves heat food faster because they target water molecules directly, bypassing the need for conduction. Plates stay cooler because they don't absorb microwaves as readily as food does, and the oven is designed to focus the energy on the food itself. That's a really clever system when you break it down. Does that explanation make sense? Or would you like me to elaborate on any of those points? All right, just checking in. Are you still there? Everything okay? Sometimes the connection gets a little wonky and I don't want to keep talking to myself. No pressure to respond, but just letting you know I'm here if you have another question, if you want to switch gears. Gotcha. Well, all right then. I'll just hang tight. Feel free to jump back in whenever you're ready. No worries at all.
Okay, so Maya, my next question from you is why what is the role of the magnet is inside a microwave? Why do microwave have a rotating glass plate? So we will give me and very interesting question and free long question. Sorry.
Ah, good. Glad to hear from you again. Okay, let's tackle the magnet and the rotating plate. Both play crucial roles, but for different reasons. First, the magnet, or more accurately, the magnetron, is the heart of the microwave. It's the component that actually generates the microwaves themselves. It doesn't work with just any old magnet, though. It uses a powerful magnetic field to control the flow of electrons, forcing them to spiral and oscillate at a very high frequency. This oscillation creates the electromagnetic radiation we know as microwaves. Think of it like this. Imagine swinging a rope in a circle. The faster you swing it, the more energy it has. The magnetron is essentially doing that with electrons, but at an incredibly high speed and using a magnetic field to keep them on track. Without the magnetron, you just have electricity, no microwaves, no heated food. It's a really fascinating piece of engineering, honestly. It's a vacuum tube, so it has a filament that heats up and releases electrons. Those electrons interact with a magnetic field to create the microwaves, and then they're channeled into the cooking chamber. It's a pretty complex process squeezed into one relatively small component. Now, let's talk about that rotating glass plate, officially called a turntable. It's not just there to make your food look fancy spinning around. The primary purpose of the turntable is to ensure even heating. As I mentioned before, microwaves don't distribute perfectly evenly throughout the oven. There are often hot spots and cold spots due to the way the waves interact with the food in the oven walls. By rotating the food, you're exposing different parts of it to those waves, giving everything a chance to get heated equally. It's like making sure everyone in a room gets a turn standing in front of a heater. It doesn't eliminate hot spots completely, but it significantly reduces them. Newer, more expensive microwaves don't have a turntable. Instead, they use a wave stirrer or a mode stirrer, a metal fan-like blade that distributes the microwaves more evenly throughout the chamber. They aim to achieve the same effect as a turntable, but mechanically, rather than by physically rotating the food. However, turntable is still the more common and generally more effective method for even heating, especially in less expensive models. So, to summarize, the magnetron creates the microwaves that cook the food, and the turntable ensures that the microwaves heat the food evenly. They work together to give you that quick and convenient cooking experience. That makes sense? Was that an interesting enough answer for you and Mary? Or would you like me to elaborate on either of those points further? All right. Still there, just in
Okay,
case you
so
need
my
me.
next question
Let me
from
know
you:
when you're ready.
microwave heated food safe to eat? So why cannot we put metal objects inside a microwave? So please give me a very interesting and full long answer about this topic. I'm waiting for your long answer.
Okay, excellent question. It's something a lot of people wonder about. You're right to ask. Microwaves are great for heating food, but metal is a definite no-no. The reason isn't simply it's dangerous, but rather a fascinating interplay of physics. That all comes down to how metal interacts with those microwaves we've been discussing. Remember, microwaves are electromagnetic waves, essentially, energy traveling in waves. Metals are excellent conductors of electricity. This means that the electrons within the metal are free to move around very easily. When microwaves hit a metal object, those electrons start to move rapidly back and forth, trying to follow the oscillating electromagnetic field. This rapid movement of electrons creates an electrical current within the metal. Now, a smooth, rounded metal object can sometimes handle this without issue, but most metal objects have sharp edges or points. At those points, the electrons become incredibly concentrated, building up a massive electrical charge. This concentrated charge can release a spark. That's the arcing you sometimes see if someone accidentally microwaves metal. That sparking isn't just a visual display, it's a tiny contained electrical explosion. It can damage the magnetron microwave itself and even potentially start a fire if there's something flammable nearby. But even without sparking, putting metal in a microwave is a bad idea. The metal will reflect the microwaves, preventing them from reaching the food. This is why you'll often see microwaves that with a mesh screen on the door, the holes are sized so the microwaves can't escape, but allow you to see inside. The metal casing of the microwave itself is designed to contain the waves, but a large metal object disrupts the system. It's like trying to shine a flashlight into a mirror. The light bounces back instead of illuminating what you're trying to see. Furthermore, thin pieces of metal, like aluminum foil, can actually melt or vaporize inside the microwave, releasing tiny particles into the air and potentially contaminating your food. Also, certain metals can create intense heat, making the item itself very hot very quickly and potentially causing burns. The shape and type of metal too. Smooth, thick, cooked, specifically designed for microwave use exists. It's shaped to avoid concentrating electrical charges, and the metal is chosen for its microwave-safe properties. However, things like forks, aluminum foil travel mugs with metallic finishes, all these are off limits. It's a risk not worth taking. Originally, the worry was less about sparks and more about the potential for the microwaves to induce powerful currents in metal objects, potentially causing them to become very hot very quickly. The sparking is a more visible and dramatic symptom, but the underlying principle is the same. Metal and microwaves don't mix well. So, for the safety of your microwave, your food, and yourself, it's best to stick to microwave-safe containers. Does that long explanation satisfy your curiosity? Is there any part of it you'd like me to expand on?
Okay,
All right.
so my main question
I'm
from you is how does a microwave heat food from inside out? So why do some foods and heat unevenly in a microwave? So how does a refrigerator keep food cold? So please give me a very interesting and very long answer on this topic. I'm waiting for your long answers. Let's start.
okay. Wow, that's a wonderfully complex set of questions. And thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it. You're asking about how microwaves heat food from the inside out, why some foods get hotter than others, and how a refrigerator keeps things cold. It's all connected to heat transfer and the properties of different materials. Let's break it down. And yes, it will be a long one. First, let's revisit how a microwave heats. As we discussed, microwaves don't heat food from the outside in like a conventional oven. They excite water molecules within the food itself, creating friction and therefore heat. Because of this, the heat is generated throughout the food simultaneously instead of having to travel inward from the surface. This is why you can often have a relatively cool exterior while the inside is piping hot. The energy is going directly to the water molecules within, not relying on conduction from the surface. Now, why do some foods heat more rapidly or evenly than others? The key here is water content in density. Foods with a higher water content, like soups, stews, and fruits, will heat up much faster because the microwaves have our water molecules to work with. They're essentially more responsive to the microwave energy. Foods with lower water content, like bread or dense meats, will take longer to heat because there are fewer water molecules to absorb the energy. Density also plays a role. Denser foods take longer to heat through because the energy has to penetrate further. Fat content also influences heating. Fats absorb microwaves less efficiently than water. You might also notice uneven heating. Even with the rotating plate, there can be hot spots and cold spots. This is due to variations in water content within the food and the way the microwave energy is distributed within the oven cavity. Some areas might receive more direct microwave exposure than others. Now let's switch gears to refrigeration. A refrigerator doesn't add coldness, it removes heat. That's a crucial distinction. Refrigerators use a refrigerant, a special fluid that circulates through a closed system of coils and tubes. This refrigerant goes through a cycle of evaporation and condensation, which allows it to absorb heat from inside the refrigerator and release it outside. Here's how it works. 1. The refrigerant starts as a low-pressure cold gas. 2. It passes through the evaporator coils inside the refrigerator. As it absorbs heat from the air inside the fridge, it turns into a low-pressure warm gas. Yeah, this warm gas is then compressed by a compressor. The motor you often hear humming in the back of the fridge. Compressing the gas increases its temperature even further. A hot, high-pressure gas then flows through the condenser coils, usually on the back or bottom of the fridge. As it releases heat to the surrounding air, it turns back into a high-pressure, warm liquid. Finally, the high-pressure liquid passes through an expansion valve, which reduces its pressure and temperature, turning it back into a low-pressure cold gas, and the cycle repeats. So, the refrigerator is essentially a heat pump. It doesn't create coldness, it moves heat from inside the refrigerator to the outside environment. The insulated walls of the fridge then help slow down the rate at which heat enters from the surrounding room. And what about food that's been in the fridge? Why does it feel cold? It's because the food has transferred its heat to the refrigerant, lowering its own temperature. The longer the food is in the fridge, the more heat it loses, and the colder it gets. You also asked how a refrigerator feeds food cold. I think you mean how does it maintain the cold temperature? It maintains the cold temperature by continually removing heat, as described above, and the insulated walls prevent heat from quickly re-entering the fridge, keeping the temperature stable. Whew, that was definitely a long answer. It involved a bit of physics, a bit of chemistry, and a lot of heat transfer. Does that clear everything up? Do you have any follow-up questions about any specific part of this explanation? Or would you like me to dive deeper into one of the topics? Okay, I'm here when you're ready to continue. Just let me know. All right, well, I'll just be here, quietly, waiting for you to resume the conversation whenever you're ready. No rush at all. Okay, just letting you know I'm still here. Feel free to jump back in whenever you like. Hey, just a heads up, we're approaching the end of our time for this call. It's about to hit 30 minutes. You can always call back later, though, and we can continue where we left off. It was great chatting with you.
So this was our Maya. I hope you like it. I meet with new